Welcome back to the No Leon County podcast. I'm your host, Michael Rice. Tonight, we're continuing our effort to help residents better understand topics that are impacting our community. Our focus this evening is on how fire safety works in Texas, especially as rural communities experience growth and new types of development. Joining us this evening is Kevin Palmer, Fire Marshal for Zandt County. Kevin has extensive experience in fire service and prevention, and we appreciate him taking the time to walk us through what a fire marshal actually does and how codes function in Texas counties and what residents should understand about public safety as communities change. The goal of this conversation is educational and to give listeners a clear, practical information directly from someone who does this work every day. Kevin, thank you for being here. For those of you,
your pleasure.
Oh yeah, for those of you who don't know, or for those folks who don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into fire service?
Yeah, my name is Kevin Palmer, the Zandt County Fire Marshal currently. I've been in the fire service since 2002. Spent most of my career with the Houston Fire Department. Later on, moved to East Texas for completely different reasons. But God had a different plan for me, so got back into the fire service, was at Gladewater Fire Department for about 3 or 4 years. And then I live in Zandt County, and this position came open, so that's where I'm at now.
Awesome. Well, what does a fire marshal actually do day to day?
So it's all about prevention within the fire service. You know, the fire marshal is still a part of the fire service. Now, most people think of firefighters, but their suppression and their after the incident has occurred. The fire marshal's role is all about prevention, and we do that through, I call them the three pillars, and that's inspection, enforcement, and public education. So generally, that's what a fire marshal does, and that's what the key components of what a fire marshal's office should be doing.
Okay. What would you say the biggest misconception about your role is?
That we're just there to shut businesses down.
All right. Well, let's talk about authority and structure. So, yeah. Where does your authority come from?
So everything that I do, that counties do, that cities do, it comes out of the Texas government code. And in Texas has clearly delineated between what a city is and what a county is, and what both can do. So most specifically, there's two local government code chapters that are pertinent to county fire protection. And it all starts with Chapter 352 of the Texas Local Government Code. The first part of that local government code, it talks about the buying of selling of apparatus, how you can establish fire departments, and so on. But about halfway down is where it grants the commissioner's court, where it says they may appoint a fire marshal. And if so, it tells you what all they do and how they appoint them and all that kind of good stuff. So everything I do comes out of the Texas government code and the relevant fire codes.
Okay. So what is the difference kind of between what a city can do and what the county can do?
Yeah, so cities can do two things that counties can't do that kind of hinder us a little bit. One is they can zone. Cities can say this part of the town is for residential use only, this part is for businesses, and they can, determine where things are located. Counties don't have that authority at all. The other thing is that cities can adopt their own fire code regardless of what size they are, where counties, you can only adopt your own fire code if you have a population of 250,000 or more, or you are adjacent to a county that has 250,000 or more residents.
Okay. Well, what happens in a county where you don't have a fire marshal?
Yeah, so you still have to offer fire protection to your citizens, because it's what it all boils down to is that counties, the commissioner's court, they have authority over commercial establishments, public buildings, and 4 or more family dwellings. So like you're kind of asking about misconceptions, like I have nothing to do with private residences and how they're built. Pole barns, one was working with some legislature, and they were saying they didn't want us coming after their chicken coops. And I said, I've read a lot of fire code, but I've never seen anything about chicken coops.
Right.
But again, we only have authority over commercial established public buildings, 4 or more family dwellings. And it's really all about, I have a place in Texas, right? And if it's private, people decide whether or not they go there, right? But when you open it up to the public and you are inviting the public onto this property to do business, people should be able to do that and know that they're walking into a business that is safe, or that they are surrounded by a business that is safe. Because again, everything I do goes to prevention. We're trying to prevent fire. We're trying to prevent fire-related deaths, and all of those things that go along with it. So I take no joy in shutting anybody down or issuing fines. That's always a last resort. We want to get them up to compliance, and we want to make sure that people that are visiting there to conduct business can do so in a safe environment.
Well, can inspections still happen if you don't have an adopted fire code?
100%. So I mentioned Chapter 352 of the Local Government Code. Another kind of correlating is Chapter 233. And in Chapter 233.064, under inspections, it says the county shall inspect a building subject to this chapter to determine whether the building complies with the fire code. And then it goes on to talk about how counties can go about that, whether they have a fire marshal. They can contract with municipalities within their jurisdiction. So let's say Van Zandt County didn't have a fire marshal, but the city of Canton did. The county can contract with the fire marshal for the city of Canton to do these buildings and stuff like that. You can also contract with third parties and things like that. So the responsibility of the county itself does not go away.
Even if it's an unincorporated part of the county?
Oh, that's all I'm talking about is unincorporated.
Oh, okay.
So when I say county, that I'm talking about the unincorporated areas.
Okay.
So I don't have jurisdiction to go into the city of Canton. They have to invite me.
Oh, okay. Okay. I see. Well, so what about the cost and the funding stuff? So like, I've brought up fire marshals. As soon as I start talking about them, people are just like, this is just another bureaucratic position. How do we address that?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is to address some of the misconceptions that we're there to shut down businesses and we want to go inspect their chicken barns. None of that is true. First off, the smaller businesses that, in my experience, everywhere that I've been a fire marshal, the small businesses where the people live there, they work there, they want to have a safe place. So I've never had an issue with them. And your smaller businesses, because whenever someone sends me an application, one of the things I have to determine is, what is it? Is it a business? Is it mercantile? Is it an auto dealership? Is it a daycare? Is it a hospital? Once I determine that, then I go to that section of the fire code that tells me what all they have to have. And there's, stuff that everybody has to have, but generally a small business, it's going to be exit signs and fire extinguishers, and that's about it. And then I do a quick calculation and tell them how many people they can hold, and off I go. And I help them through that process all the way. In my experience, who I get the most grief from is people that don't live here. It's not a small business. It's large corporations that are trying to save money, and which, again, they're trying to save money in lieu of having the most safe building possible per the fire code of what I can address.
Yeah.
So local businesses, there's usually no issues with those folks because it's just not that much to it. It's a small business. Not everything has to be sprinklered. Not everything has to have a fire alarm. And so you're talking about putting up some exit signs and getting a few fire extinguishers. That's pretty much about it.
That seems like common sense stuff to have anyway. So
It very much is. So
Yeah.
once you get away from the misconceptions of we're about to go shut down a small businesses, it's just not true, and there's not that much added cost to it, right? You're talking about a couple $100 with fire extinguishers and exit signs, and you're out the door, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the first part is get rid of the don't be ignorant and just understand that there's a reason that we're doing all this stuff. As far as paying for itself, it just kind of depends because the Texas government code also allows if you have a fire marshal established, it allows the commissioner's court to set a permit fee schedule. So whenever somebody submits a permit, depending on what they're doing, I can charge a fee. So generally, staying kind of small business for a general life and health, life safety, fire and life safety inspection, it's $100 for that permit fee. And if it needs a fire alarm or it needs a sprinkler system, there's additional fees that are included. But generally, the majority of what I get is $100 for that permit fee. We also have a new construction fee, and that is based off the value of the project. So if you've got a $5 million project, I think our fee is about $10,100. And so the bigger the project, the bigger the fee that you can charge, because you're taking that on for the life of its project. And you're talking about thousands of pages of documents, hours and hours of time. And so it may not pay for itself, but it definitely offsets a lot of the costs.
Okay. Yeah, that was one of the things I was talking with one of our commissioners today, even after court, and I was telling him, I was pretty sure that if we kept getting as many batteries here and big projects here as what you guys up in Van Zandt are seeing, that a lot of that, a lot of what we think we might have to spend to keep a fire marshal employed is going to be pretty well offset by, inspection fees and permit fees and things like that. So
absolutely.
Yeah. What about the revenue that you generate? What happens to that? Does it go back to like the county general fund? Does it have to stay in the fire budget?
Yeah, so any permits, fees, or fines that you issue in regards to fire prevention can only go into a fire prevention fund. It cannot. It says it shall not go into the general fund.
Okay.
And so then that becomes so my responsibility as the fire marshal is I have to be very diligent on how that money is spent. Like I can't go throw a pizza party, right, with that money, because that doesn't aid fire prevention. I can use it for other people's salaries, the computer that we work on, anything that enhances fire prevention. That's how that's the only thing that money can be used for.
What about life-saving equipment, and life-saving salaries? So paramedics and ambulances, or does it just have to go to fire only?
Fire prevention. Okay. Fire prevention. So I couldn't even go buy a new fire truck, because that's not prevention, that's suppression.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it has to stay in a fire prevention budget.
Now, would that be the same if you were working for the ESD rather than the county?
No, ESDs have their own separate regulations and things that they can and can't do. So that could go into the ESD fund, which then could be used to buy fire trucks and things like that.
Okay. Because I do know some of our ESDs are wildly underfunded, and we have to compete salary wise with some of these bigger cities and things, and so we do occasionally run into issues where it's like, well, how are we going to keep up these paramedics here if we don't have the money to compete with some of these bigger counties? So yeah, okay. Let's see. Let's shift over to risk and real world response. So how are hazards evaluated before construction begins? So, we've got a handful of batteries that are just sitting there pending, and who knows what's going on with them. Is there anything that you can do before construction even starts on those?
Yes. So the Texas government code, again, is very clear that before construction begins, the company is supposed to submit an application and all required documents to the authority having jurisdiction. So let's go with battery energy storage. Before any construction started, they should have submitted an application with all of the required documentation, and it's a lot for battery energy storage. There's not just one fire code; there's a lot, and a lot of certifications that they're supposed to have. So just to give you some of the higher ones, is one is a hazard mitigation analysis, an emergency response plan, how they are complying with NFPA 1, NFPA 101, and then everything within 855, such as UL 9540 testing, full scale fire testing, plume analysis, all that. And then at some point, when all that is good, when the plans review is done, the fire marshal would sign off on those plans and give them the authority to start construction. And then as construction goes along, the authority having jurisdiction has the right to make inspections to make sure that it's being built according to the plans. And then a final inspection before it actually goes online. There has to be a final inspection as well. And then you can issue a certificate of compliance.
Okay. Wow. So if we've already had one that has had like a tax abatement issued and they've already submitted paperwork, then there should have the commissioners in this case, since we don't have a fire marshal, they would have authorized all of the stuff that you're talking about, whether they were knowledgeable enough to sign off on it or not. As long as they did, then that gives the company the right to move forward.
You can be as good or as bad as you want in Texas. That's what I love about
it. Yeah. Okay. Well, how important is it to take care of this stuff before, like pre-incident planning? Like, how important is that part?
It's super important. For that, you always plan for the worst and hope for the best.
Right.
I hope none of these BESS facilities ever catch on fire, but I'm not going to just cross my fingers and say I hope not. I'm going to make sure everything is in place so that if something does happen, we know how to respond. We know how to mitigate it to the lowest level, again, to prevent, injuries, deaths to our citizens, because that's who I'm here to serve. I'm appointed by the Commissioners Court, but I still serve the people. And so it's super important to have that stuff in place. Do you want to know how to fight the fire before or after it starts is the most basic question you have to ask.
Absolutely.
And before is always the right answer.
Yes, I would agree. So how quickly so you said you live in Van Zandt. Do you know how quickly y'all went from like one BESS facility to, I believe y'all have 9 in the pipeline now. Is that correct?
We only have one application. I know that there were some applications submitted to PUCT and maybe proposed, but I can only go with what I've received.
Oh, okay.
And that's one application. Now, maybe because all the stuff that we've done in Van Zandt County, these other companies are going to choose not to come in. I don't know. What I can say is that companies like this, they kind of know each other. They talk, they see stuff that comes out, and they usually buy up and lease more land than they're ever going to use. And they generally try to find the place where it's going to be the easiest to do business. And I think that right now it's pretty clear that if you come to Van Zandt County, it's not that it's hard to do business. You just have to follow the fire code, and we're going to hold you to that. You can't just walk in here, build what you want, get your tax abatements, and say see you later. There's going to be responsibility that goes along with it.
Yeah. Well, what lessons do you think have been learned there from that some of our other counties like us, and then some of these other counties where things are just getting ready to start rolling? What lessons can we learn from some of the fast growing counties?
One, that you need a fire marshal, right? Because nobody wants a fire marshal till they need one.
Yeah.
And so we've made a lot of headway just because of that, and not just because of me. Our commissioners court and the judge, all the commissioners and the judge, they've played their part. They haven't told me what to do on my end. I haven't told them what to do. And including our district attorney, Tonda Curry, she's the one that drafted that 490 something page temporary restraining order. Oof. Her and I working hand in hand. I didn't tell her what to do. She didn't tell me what to do. We all played our part. So it really is a group effort. And so again, I go back to let's get rid of the ignorance factor in that I'm not here to shut down small businesses. I'm here to serve the community, make sure everything is safe. And then when things like these come in, you're not having to be so reactive to it and say, oh my gosh, what do we do now?
Right.
Well, you wouldn't have this problem if you had just appointed a fire marshal like the government code said you could.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that harshly, but we just need to get the education out there about what a fire marshal is, and that's why I appreciate you doing this podcast about what we actually do, who we actually are, and why we're here.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we've been talking a lot about BESS. What makes a BESS fire different from, like, out here in Leon County, we are overrun with Sanderson chicken houses. And
Yeah.
so, I get to talking to folks and they're like, well, them chicken houses, they catch on fire sometimes. And I don't think they understand what the difference between like one of those lithium fires is and, just a standard commercial fire.
Yeah, so in a standard commercial fire, you're looking at the byproducts of combustion, and you've got, your normal. It's not good for you by any means, but the smoke is not going to kill the next door neighbor. We're within a lithium-ion battery facility. Modern fire suppression techniques do not work. You can't use water on it. If you look at all the battery energy storage facilities that have caught on fire, they've had to just let them burn out, basically. And so when you do that, you're putting lots of products of combustion into the atmosphere that residents could breathe in, and there are very adverse health effects to those. That's why the plume study is required, because we have to know what's in it, how far is it going to go. And then even in Van Zandt County, what I try to get people to realize is we're an agricultural county. So it's going to travel through the air, and it doesn't just go away and magically disappear. It eventually finds its way into the ground, into the soil, which eventually gets into the grass, which eventually gets into the cattle and everything else.
Right.
So it's not even close to being an apples to apples comparison as to what the adverse health effects are once those things catch on fire.
Well, with those, people hear the word or hear about thermal runaway and reignition. What does that mean with those things?
So thermal runaway, very generically, is that once it gets to a certain temperature and it starts to go into thermal runaway, there's nothing you can do about it. It's going to burn. So once it reaches thermal runaway, that's why I was saying when these containers catch on fire and they isolate it to that one container, it's going to burn for about a week or so. And it's going to be emitting all those byproducts combustion that are very bad for you, the environment, everything else. And so, yeah, you have to look at it very differently than you do just a commercial structure fire.
Yeah. So, what is there specialized training and equipment that has to happen in order to handle these? Because we're all volunteer fire departments out here.
Yeah, so part of the requirements in 855, another requirement along with all those documents, is they have to provide first responder training. And like here in Van Zandt County, they've done kind of an initial one, which was just an introductory. But what we haven't done yet, because of many different reasons, is once the actual emergency response plan is built, and we do more site-specific training.
Okay.
So yeah, 100% specialized training, and then any equipment that may or may not need to be bought, that gets talked about who pays for it.
Okay. Are there certain departments that need to be in place beforehand?
Say that again?
Are there certain departments or anything that need to be in place beforehand? Or is just a standard, like just your standard run-of-the-mill volunteer fire department going to be good enough to handle that?
No, I wouldn't say you're standard. It just depends on the department because there really is no, especially in rural counties, there is no standard run-of-the-mill department, right?
Okay.
Because they're not regulated like a lot of other departments. In Houston, we all have to be Texas Commission on Fire Protection trained and all that kind of good stuff. We're here, and that's why I am trying to get through to the company that we're dealing with is I could have 18-year-old volunteer the first to pull up to this facility.
Oh yeah.
What is 18-year-old going to do? Right? He's
Yes.
going to go after the fire. And so, no, there definitely there needs to be a lot of training that takes place with the emergency manager, the emergency management coordinator, and any of the fire departments that may respond. And that training will need to be reoccurring. It can't be a one and done. It's going to have to be done at least annually.
Okay. So, oh man, those things are so scary. Okay. All right. Well, for business owners that are listening, we talked a little bit about it, but what can a small business owner expect? If you were to show up to town here.
Yeah, so whenever I get one of those applications, I just give them a call, ask them what they got going on, what type of business it is, so that I can make sure that I go to the right part of the fire code, and I schedule a meeting with them. One of the things that everybody has to have is an emergency action plan, but I'll show them what an emergency action plan looks like, that they have to have it. And basically, I work for them. Those very small businesses, I will, take them by the hand, work with them. And I always tell them, hey, there's probably going to be a list of stuff that we need to fix, but that doesn't mean it needs to be fixed tomorrow. We'll evaluate whether it's high risk, moderate risk, or low risk, and we'll move on from there. There's some places that I've given up to a year because it's going to cost some money. I've given them a year. Hey, I'm going to waive your fee, and I'm going to give you up to a year to generate the revenue to get that in place.
Okay.
And so it just depends on all that. But yeah, it's a working relationship. But your standard small business, 2,000 square foot, whatever it is, it's usually exit signs and fire extinguishers. That's it.
Okay. Is the role preventative or punitive? It sounds like it's preventative.
It's 100% preventative. That's the end result, right? How we get there is really up to the business owner.
Okay.
If they work with me, I'm absolutely going to work with them. The only time it becomes punitive is if they stop working with me or they just say, no, I'm not going to do it. Then I have to take further action, but it's all into the safety of the citizens of this county and having the fire prevention in place.
Okay. So like if you were whatever, we get a fire marshal that rolled into town, and we haven't had one in the past at least 20 years. I looked, we had one that was doing some random stuff for us in 2001, and then they moved on in 2002, and the commissioners decided not to, keep the role around after that. And so what happens like that very first, year or so that you're there? Do these existing businesses, like, how does that process work for those existing businesses? Is it, you have to go apply for permits, or do you just randomly show up and start inspecting, or how does that process work?
Yeah, so for me, I started by basically categorizing our businesses, and this is all from fire prevention best practices into high risk, medium risk, and low risk. So you're talking about your 1,500 square foot postcard store, right? That's very low risk. So I start with the high risk facilities, and I identify those. And different things have shown that as long as you categorize and you start the inspection process, if I don't get to you and something happens, like, we're not liable. Right. I'm only one person. There's only so many inspections that I can do. And generally, right now, when I very first started, I was kind of like just taking them as they came. As applications came in, I went. If they happened to be next to a couple other businesses, that's when I would go introduce myself and say, hey, I'm the new fire marshal, and it's new. And so you've got to give time. You've got to do that education part that I was telling you about. As far as public education as to who you are, why you're doing what you're doing, what it takes. And then just slowly over time, you'll get to every business. But it takes time. Just depends on how big the office is.
If a business, because we've got a power plant out here is one of the big businesses that we have. If they have their own fire brigade on location, does that exempt them from having to have inspections through the fire marshal, since they've got their own equipment and firefighters and everything that are already out there?
That's a great question. Yeah, they are specifically exempted per the Texas local government code.
Okay.
If they have their own fire, that they have their own fire brigade.
Okay. I thought they were, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, I guess in closing, what advice do you have for rural counties that are experiencing all this rapid growth?
Yeah. Get you a fire marshal and make sure that they're up on their knowledge and they know what they're doing, and that I've worked with several counties, several different fire marshals. So if they have any questions, let's work together. We're all here to have the common goal of fire prevention and to save lives. So I take calls from any county in Texas. I've gotten calls from Washington State, Iowa, Idaho, and I'm always there to answer any questions that you have and to help you out. So
Awesome.
if you do have any questions, whether you're part of the government, a random citizen, or you're a fire marshal, reach out to me and I'll help you out. And then, yeah, just get rid of the ignorance aspect. Sorry about that.
No worries.
The ignorance aspect, as far as, we are not the Gestapo to go shut down and look for people's papers, right?
Okay.
Like we just want to serve. We just want to serve our people. And I think one of your questions was, what should you look for in a fire marshal? And for me, it's a servant's heart and integrity. I can't be bought. I don't even give the deception of corruption. I went into a place not too long ago and they said, "Can I get you an ice water?" And I didn't even accept that ice water because I don't even want there to be the appearance of, oh, well, he's being bought off and all
Right.
that kind of good stuff. So I would say a servant's heart and integrity.
Awesome. Well, is there any resources that residents can review to kind of learn more about this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I always encourage residents to get to know that local government code, because that's where it's where Texas is given authority to your commissioners, your sheriffs, your constables. We don't just make stuff up, right? Kevin Palmer didn't wake up last year and make all these rules against battery energy storage systems.
Right.
They were already there, right? And we just follow them. And so if you're passionate about something, take that passion and get educated about it first, and what the proper way is to whether it's fight something or be for something. Make sure that you're just right about it, because a lot of the questions I get is, well, why can't you just shut them down? Well, it's because I still have to follow the law myself, right? And I'm a peace officer as well. Criminals and bad actors can make as many mistakes as they want. I can never make a mistake. If I do, it's a hill that you have to overcome for many, many decades. So when you go after something, you have to go over it right. You can't swing and miss. You have to hit.
Excellent. Well, is there anything that I should have asked that I haven't asked that you'd like to get out there?
No, I think those are all great questions. I really appreciate you having me on again.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us and help get this information out there. So I guess that's going to wrap this episode up, and thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you.